Well, we'll get to the DNA one. So chapter 4, know the difference between catabolism and anabolism. Whew. What is the difference between something that is anabolic or catabolic?
Anabolic is small to brings particles from small to large, and it does not does require energy.
You're talking about anabolic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Good.
catabolic is large to small, and it does not require energy or ATP.
Good. Yes. Good. So, just repeat that for all you at home. Catabolic is breaking things down, right? So you have a big brick wall and you blow it up. So all of the bricks go everywhere. Okay? That's catabolic. Okay? Example of that would be glycogen in your body, which is a whole bunch of glucose strung together and chopping all those glucoses off. So now there's a whole bunch of glucoses floating around. That would be a catabolic process. And yes, just like you said, that releases energy, that process. Whenever you break a bond, you release energy. Whenever you create a new bond, you have to put a bunch of energy into that bond. So that would be the opposite, anabolic. Okay? So similarly, if you were to take all those glucoses and make glycogen, a big glycogen molecule, out of a bunch of individual glucose molecules, that would be an anabolic process. And it would require energy to put into those bonds to link up all of those glucose molecules. Okay? Questions about that? Okay. All right. Understand the processes, to the extent discussed on the slides, of glycolysis, the citric acid cycle, and electron transport chain. Know what each part of the metabolic process produces. What substrates go into each of these steps? Woo, that's a big one. Yeah. Yeah, so let's go through it real quickly. We've got, since we skipped our last break, we've got about 10 minutes left. All right, gotta go on this side. Glycolysis, you start out with 6 carbon.
Sugar glucose.
Good. 6 carbon glucose. And a whole bunch of reactions happen. And the result is
2,3 carbon pyruvic acid.
yeah, pyruvic acid, which is good. Yep. So 4 ATP. I'm sorry. 2 ATP go in. 4 this times 2. 4 ATP come out. So a net of positive 2 ATP. Does that make sense? 2 go in, 4 come out. So you've gained 2. 2 more than you started with. Okay? Good. And then you get the pyruvic acid. Then what happens? What? First of all, where does this happen in the cell? Yep, this is in the cytoplasm, or the cytosol. So cytoplasm. Glycolysis. Okay, good. Then pyruvic acid undergoes a change to become
Acetyl-CoA.
good, acetyl-CoA. In the process, it loses the carbon in the form of
CO2.
good. And acetyl-CoA is a 2 carbon, right? We had a 3, we lost 1, now we have 2. And then acetyl-CoA does what?
It combines with the oxalate.
Good. Oxaloacetate.
Yeah, thank you, because I can.
Good. Which is a 4-carbon. Whoop. 4-carbon molecule. 4 plus 2.
You get your 6-carbon glucose.
What do you get? Citric acid, which is also 6 carbons. Okay, good. And then a whole bunch of reactions that take place. And what are byproducts? Good. CO2. How many? 2. Good. Because remember, you're going from 6 to 4, so you're going to have to lose 2 carbons. And they get lost in the form of CO2. So you're going to lose 2 CO2 molecules. Good. Then ATP. Okay, and hydrogen in the form of NADH and good NADH and FADH2. Now, first of all, what is this? Well, first of all, this is called the citric acid cycle. Citric acid cycle, and it occurs inside the So now we're in the mitochondria. Okay, good. This is the citric acid cycle. Now we need to go to the third step, which is good. So, and this, where is the electron transport chain? Where is it? The inner or the outer membrane? The inner, right. Because remember, the mitochondria is unique in that it's the only organelle that has 2 membranes. One on the outside and one on the inside. Okay? Good. So I'm just going to draw this right here to represent that. Here's the outer. This is the inner membrane. Okay, good. And you've got all of these different proteins embedded into the inner membrane. Okay, and what is in this space in between the outer and the inner? Yes, a whole bunch of hydrogen ions. Remember that? They're all in there together. Okay? Good. And so, which byproduct of the citric acid cycle goes on to the electron transport chain?
The NADH and the FADH.
Yeah, these guys are going to come on over and donate hydrogen. Good. That's going to go straight through into the inner membrane space. And they're also going to donate their electrons, right? They pick up hydrogens, not just hydrogens, but hydrogens and some electrons. And they donate the electrons. And it's called the electron transport chain, so you know they're going to be transporting some electrons. So, those electrons come in, and they're going to get passed along, until they get here. And those electrons, just speaking of the electrons right now, those electrons are going to do what? Help to form a certain molecule. Not that. This is the electrons. That's the hydrogens. We'll get there. Who said that?
I said water.
Yeah.
Oh, water, yeah.
Yeah, so oxygen, oxygen is everywhere, so it's floating around. And hydrogen's also floating around, right? Everywhere. So what this does is it takes the electrons that have been donated, it brings in an oxygen, it brings in some hydrogens, and says, all right, we're going to link them all together to make H2O. So water is made with the electrons. Okay? So, yes, because everything inside the mitochondria, all of these reactions are aerobic or anaerobic? Aerobic. Good. Which means what? They require oxygen. Yeah. If there was no oxygen, let's say that, you know, if you're a drowning victim or something, and if you looked inside their mitochondria at that moment, there wasn't oxygen. What would happen if there was no oxygen? Yeah, this whole thing wouldn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Right? It only keeps on going because the electrons keep getting pumped through, keep latching on to make water. Okay? Good. So it makes water, and all these hydrogens that fill the inner membrane space, they desperately want to get out of there. They don't want to go, stay in there forever. It's too crowded, whatever. And there's only one avenue out, and that is through ATP synthase. Good. ATP synthase. Good. And just like a water wheel uses the flow of water to power its processes, ATP synthase utilizes the flow of hydrogen to power its process, which is making ATP. And when you take ADP plus a floating around phosphate and you link those together to make ATP, what is that process called? Phosphorylation. Yep, you're phosphorylating it. You're adding the phosphorus. Okay? Woo! It's a lot of stuff. Yeah? Questions on that? Alright, be comfortable with this and all the extra little things that I threw in there, right? This is anaerobic. Everything that occurs in the cytosol, anaerobic. Everything that occurs inside the mitochondria, aerobic, meaning it needs oxygen. That's why we breathe. That's why our red blood cells carry oxygen to our cells. That's the whole reason. So that this can make ATP. Without ATP, you die. Okay? All right. All right. Well, I think we've reached the end of our time together. That was a good one to end on because it's a really big one. Okay? All right. So we'll put a pin in that right there. And come talk to me if you have any questions. I will be around here for just a minute. And other than that, good luck in your studies. And I'll see you Wednesday.